Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. Welcome to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann. And I wanted to share with you something that really moved me today, and it's totally fitting with the topic of our show in some ways, like always. I talked to a farmer, like a local guy who chatted with me about life and about his life and how since he is 13 years old, he pretty much had not taken a day of vacation, just keeping on working on the farm of his dad and that he took over then. And it's really remarkable how many hours it takes to get food for us on the table. And it really made me realize, wow, we are so unappreciative of all those millions of people that are pretty much sacrificing their life for not a lot of pay to produce vegetables and fruit and also animal products, and we do have to be a little bit more mindful around that. And I have to say, I felt a little sorry. I felt like, poor guy, he's just basically slaving along and telling me that he repeats the same mistakes that his dad did, who was never really having time with his kids to play. And he pretty much has the same dilemma right now, that there is not a lot of time. But he also told me that what he really loves about his work is that he's always present. He's always in the moment, because when you're in nature all the time, when you are dealing with plants or animals, you're not going far into the future, or you're not distracting yourself by the newest social media trends. You're just here and now. And he loves that way of living. He feels like the days are longer, and therefore his life is also more long and fulfilling in that way. And that's where our show today ties in, because it's all about this more mindful and more present way of living. And my special guest will help us to get there today. And I think a lot of us need that, right? I mean, we're so busy. We're so always spinning around, regretting or somehow analyzing the past, scheming or worrying about the future. And if we don't feel comfortable, we just love to watch Netflix or something to get out of our heads. But we are still not really there. We are still not really present in our bodies. And even when we are working out, in the treadmill, we rather are listening to a book on tape or watching some news channel than really feeling, how does my body feel? Is my body done? Is my body happy what I'm doing? Should I change it? No, we're really not there, all of us. So having someone to help us to be more mindful and to also live a little bit more in that union place where all the different aspects of us are harmoniously working together. That's the job of my guest today. And I was actually really practicing her name, so I hope I did it right. Melissa Steginus. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa, for joining me. Melissa wrote a fabulous book. It's called Everyday Mindfulness, 108 Simple Practices to Empower Yourself and Transform Your Life. And it's a really, really great book, and it's a fun read. And every day there's a little bit of homework you can do to really improve your life. So thank you, Melissa, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here, and I'm excited to talk about the book. I think it crosses over beautifully into the story that you just shared, which personally resonates with me. I mean, I'm from a farming community, and I'm also an avid gardener. So that idea of cultivating and being present, getting your hands in the dirt, getting present with your body as you move around, as you're nurturing little seedlings, as you're watching things grow and just benefit from the nutrients around them. There's so much overlap from that. There's so much that can be taken and given when you are practicing gardening and farming and just observing and connecting in your own life. So I love that. I think that's such a fun coincidence that that was brought up in today's
Yeah,
interview.
definitely. Now you have surprised me because in your press release, it was about you saying that time and energy are the most important resources, and usually that's something people say that don't have a lot of time and energy left. So you're very young and vital and everything. So how did you come up with such a wise idea, which I completely agree with, but it's unusual?
I love that. I like to be a surprise for people. Well, honestly, it's been through observation over the years. Like even being young, just like this wise 13-year-old farmer that you were chatting with, there's so much experience that can come in the years that we have, right, regardless of age. And so through my professional experience in mental health and various situations and contexts in that field, in social work, in coaching, in traveling and seeing all kinds of different countries and ways of living, and also being raised by a mother who's a clinical psychologist, I think she instilled a lot of wisdom and values in me as a young age. So I've learned to really ask a lot of questions, to observe, to be open to different mindsets, and to challenge myself, to check in with myself on a regular basis, just like you wonderfully said in your introduction, just to see how am I feeling in my body? What am I noticing in terms of my mental patterns, in terms of behaviors? I'm huge on personal empowerment. That is like my umbrella word for everything in life. And I really think that I've done well, and I've worked hard, as it is work, to live within that umbrella and underneath it, and to constantly ask myself questions around how do I want to live? What am I noticing in my day to day, in my body, in how I'm conducting myself, interacting with other people, interacting with myself? In that sense, what's working well? What do I want to change? Just constantly checking in and making little tweaks and wanting to really live fully and live freely and give my full self, in the time frame that I have, whatever that looks like, both for myself and for the people around me in my immediate circle, and kind of the world at large. What contribution do I want to make there? So I'm always asking just a flurry of questions.
I think that's, just in alignment with the old saying that the price you pay in life, especially for a fulfilling life, is attention. And you do pay attention. And that's something I think your book also points out in various of those tools, just to listen and to see what's really going on inside. Now, I want to delve into this book, but, mindfulness is such a almost like a buzzword that people are using, but mainly in the context of meditation, mindfulness meditation. And what I find about your book is so inspirational that it's actually a mindfulness way of living, and that it really integrates the concept of mindfulness into other aspects besides sitting on a pillow and watching your breath. So, what would you say, as an overall concept? I guess you probably live your mindfulness everyday practices. What is mindful living? How would you summarize that?
Yeah, that's the number one question that people are always trying to tease out of me, because like you say, it is becoming a bit of a buzzword, which is fantastic in the sense that now people are really paying attention to what it means, what's the research behind it, and what does it mean for them as an individual. And I think that
Mhm.
that's a really important question to explore for oneself. For me, it does circle back to, my quote, my motto, which is that your time and your energy are your most precious resources. I do believe that in my experience, in working in the mental health field, in working in social work, in observing my colleagues, in observing myself, my family, whomever, is that we need to be aware of how we're living. I mean, it sounds so ridiculous and maybe a bit esoteric and, how very meta of me, but I equate mindfulness with intention. So an intention is really about paying attention, to do things deliberately, to live deliberately. And inquiry is a big part of that. So I think intention and inquiry are key. It's also essential to really recognize and value your time and attention, because everything else can fluctuate. It can come and go. Your money, your work status, your children, right? As they grow up, they move out, and everything will change around you. And yet what you are made up of is primarily energy. That's another conversation. And what you have for yourself and what you have to give to others always comes back to your time and your energy. And these are the resources that make you up as a human, and that are your primary sort of containers for contribution to other people. So I've found through existing as a person, and certainly in the work that I've done, that if you can be really, really attentive to and intentional with your time, how you spend it, how you want to spend it, filling that gap between the two, and your energy, I think you've answered a lot of questions for yourself already, because from my experience, everything comes back to those two things. And so in terms of living with intention, of course, and living mindfully, that is. So if you can really start to pay attention to, what am I doing with my time? How do I feel? What are my energy levels? Then you start to have these ripple effects in your life that relate to all these facets. And that's what this book is about. And so this is everyday mindfulness. I hope you can see it. I know there's quite a glare, but it covers 6 different facets of your life, which are your your physical, your emotional, your rational. So those mental thoughts and patterns that we often struggle with in meditation and in general, right? Trying to figure out, well, what's me, and what's this voice, and how do I figure out who's who and what to do? And then you have the spiritual, you have occupation, and your network, your interactions, your relationships. And my intention with writing the book and with sharing the book, which has been a very exciting project to release, because it's been a number of years in the making, is just to give people an insight into what mindfulness can be for them. It doesn't have to look like sitting on a mat for 30 minutes a day, twice a day, because I've read my fair share of books where that's exercise number 1. And exercise number 1 in this book is intended to just be very, very simple, and it's just 5 deep breaths, because I want you to recognize that small, simple, consistent practices will lead to those lasting, meaningful, transformative changes. And I think sometimes it feels less exciting. It feels like you're not making as big of a transformation right off the bat, because you're not going to, a 4-day retreat or a big conference event. But I'm telling you, these are the ways to make sustainable changes, and ones that are going to mean something to you, so that you are excited to keep doing them every day, because you'll want to, and you'll see the results. So with 108 different practices in different facets, 6 different facets of your life in the book, I wanted to create a wide variety so that you can try out as many as you like, whether, all 108, or if you're just focusing on, okay, I want to deal with, this, my emotional well-being, just focus on that one chapter, and you've got 18 practices within that facet to choose from, and play with it, right? Like, we're so hard on ourselves, and we try so hard to make these overnight changes, and then we kick ourselves when, the next day or the next week, we've stopped for a day and we just give up and call ourselves a failure. And I really want to create a resource which is the intention with the book, for you to play with it, to experiment, to find what's going to work for you. And then if it doesn't work, you've given it a shot. You can come back to it in the future, and maybe you try another exercise the next day. So just to keep it light and fun, and recognize that there's space to play even with personal empowerment, especially within personal empowerment.
Now, when we come back after the break, I'm gonna ask you what you would suggest for people that say, sorry, I don't have time nor energy. And one of those 108 exercises would actually be a good one to start when you are struggling with that. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.